Willkommen, this is Julia.
And this is Shane. And this is Think Plant-Based. Think Plant-Based. Make sure to check out recipes, health tips, travel tips at www.thinkplantbased.com.
And we're officially on iTunes, so please rate and write us a review on iTunes.
Write us a review. Give us 2 stars, 3 stars, maybe 5 stars. Let us know.
For sure, 5.
Yeah, I mean, who would give us 2 stars anyways, right? But yeah, make sure to do that because that's how we get found.
We are also on YouTube. Check us out and find us on Think Plant-Based.
Welcome back to Think Plant-Based.
Think Plant-Based.
Isn't that amazing and exciting today? We have a very special day.
And a special guest.
Very special guest.
As
yeah,
always,
exactly,
we always
right?
have special guests.
We always do.
Stuart
All the way from
Waldner.
Kentucky.
Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome, Stuart, to
Hi,
our
Julia.
show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, our
Great.
pleasure. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you became vegan or plant-based.
Okay, I grew up in the state of Kentucky where I live now. And, I ate animal-based foods for the first 23 years of my life, just like most people around me. I was taught to do so by my parents who thought that, if I ate animal-based foods, as well as fruits and veggies, that I would grow up to be, healthy and strong. And unfortunately, Kentucky is a beautiful state with great people, but unfortunately, it is one of the least healthy states in the United States. For instance, we rank 48 in healthy behaviors and 47th in health outcomes. So That's pretty bad. And there's only one other state that has more people with multiple chronic health conditions than Kentucky. So we are a state with a lot of unhealthy people, unfortunately. And so that's the state I grew up in. And I just saw a lot of people around me in the community and my family struggling with chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, obesity, hypertension. And, I just thought it was inevitable. We were all going to get sick with one of these chronic conditions. And the best we could hope for was to try to manage it with pills, shots, and surgeries. That's the mentality of so many people in Kentucky. So That's how I grew up. And it was in 1985, when I was 23 years old, I'm old, that I made a lifestyle change that science said would offer me the best chance of avoiding one of these chronic conditions that I was seeing so many people around me suffer with. And that's when I became plant-based in 1985.
Did you have any health issues at all when you were 23?
I did not.
No?
I did not. I was experiencing great health, as most, not everyone at the age of 23 is experiencing great health. I know that. Right. But a vast majority of us, when we're in our 20s, feel like we're pretty invincible.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
And could eat anything we wanted and all that. So, but science was coming out saying that eating animal-based foods could lead to heart disease. And like I said, so many of these chronic conditions. And I knew I didn't want to become a statistic. So that's when I made this lifestyle change. And fortunately, I had friends and family who were doing this with me. So that made it easier. And, back in 1985, oh my gosh, it was like a vegan wasteland in the United States. Maybe if I lived in California, it would have been easier. But in Kentucky, it was not so. But we made it work. I think there was only one brand of non-dairy milk available. It was the soy milk, and you could maybe find, one brand of tofu, but it wasn't very firm, so it was kind of nasty. But we made it work, and we just adopted a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. We weren't eating, the processed vegan food like you have now. Right. And we did great. And I enjoyed it. And, we were even making our own kombucha. Can you believe that? 1985 homemade.
Really? Wow.
Julia used to make her own all the time.
But in the 80s? That's impressive.
Yeah.
Cool.
People thought we were crazy. What are you doing growing this?
What is this
this stuff? What is this stuff?
Yeah, totally. Right. So, what are these hippies doing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but then I started traveling more, and it was just impossible to be healthy and be a plant-based person in the United States in 1987. So, you can't sustain yourself on iceberg lettuce, salad. So, and so we became vegetarian at that point just to make it easier to travel and to get the nutrition that we needed, simply because plant-based foods were not available at that time.
Right.
Not like today, certainly. And then in 2008, I became plant-based again, and have been plant-based, ever since, so the last 15 years. So I gave up eating meat 38 years ago, and 17 of those years I've been plant-based. And, I've enjoyed excellent health, and I've avoided all the chronic conditions that I see in so many people around me. And, my primary care physician says I'm an outlier in his practice because of my healthy lifestyle. In fact, he wrote a great endorsement for my book. So that made me feel really good. And it wasn't really until I saw him, I didn't even have a primary care physician, but when I turned 50, I thought, I probably should have a colonoscopy and just for routine screening.
Right.
And so I found this primary care physician, and the first time, it's a teaching hospital, the University of Kentucky. It's the largest healthcare system in the state of Kentucky, and that's where my primary care physician has his practice, and it's a teaching hospital. So when I went in for the first time, some resident students interviewed me. And the questions kept coming and coming and coming. And at one point, the doctor said, I'm sorry, we're grilling you with all these questions, but we're just trying to find some evidence that you're actually 50 years old.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, you look younger.
That's when a light bulb went off at that moment. I was like, really? I mean, that's when I realized that, I'm not your typical 50-year-old Kentuckian who's walking into a medical clinic, because I'm not suffering from any of these conditions that are basically conditions that come from a lifetime of consuming animal-based foods. And so by my giving that up at such an early age, I've been able to avoid all that. And knock on wood, I'm still doing it, and I'm still reaping the benefits from 38 years of not having meat, and 17 of which I've not had dairy or eggs or cheese. So
that's amazing. How's your environment of people? Like, what feedback do you get when they hear you're vegan in Kentucky?
Well, but the first thing we always hear, right, is where do you get your protein? So that's like the first thing everyone's trying to figure out. Yeah, it's always the first question. But, it's pretty good. People understand, and I think more and more people are okay that there are vegans out in the world, and they're getting more and more comfortable with it. But, there were some studies, and I share a lot of science in my book, but there were studies that showed that, meat eaters get very uncomfortable by just being in the presence of a plant-based eater, someone who doesn't consume animal-based foods. It makes an omnivore very uncomfortable, and they start engaging in all these strategies like denial of animal mind, denial of animal pain, and they get quite defensive. Sometimes, the vegan or plant-based eater doesn't have to do anything. We don't have to bring it up. And if the person knows that we're that way, they can get really defensive and start, justifying all of their eating preferences and habits. So, it's a mix. Some people, respect it. Some people are threatened by it, and they start getting defensive. I'm sure you've experienced that as well.
Exactly what you were saying. Yeah. Exactly. And I think we're on the same boat with most people that are vegan.
Yeah. It happens.
The most powerful thing is really you don't even say anything.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Actions are more powerful than words. Yeah,
that's true. And, for many, many years, I was comfortable just doing my own thing and letting other people do theirs, because I'm not about blaming and shaming people.
Sure.
I'm not pointing the finger at anybody because, I was living in the Meatrix for the first 23 years of my life, and I was comfortable there. I never gave the animals a second thought about, the animals that I was eating. I didn't think about their quality of life or that they were killed for me to eat them. It was just, that all was normalized for me at a very early age by this culture.
Exactly.
And so I can't blame people for not making those connections and connecting those dots, but so for a long time, I was just happy to do my thing. But it became really clear to me that we're at a critical time on our planet right now with climate change, emerging infectious diseases, biodiversity loss, mass extinction rates, environmental degradation, our declining health, and the horrible return on investment of animal agriculture. I mean, the signs are all around us that we're at an axis point on this planet, and we need to make some changes fast to help avert some of the worst case scenarios of climate change and emerging infectious diseases and all these things. So when I was doing my research, I realized that all of those things and more are connected to the food on our plates and choices that we're making in the grocery aisle. And I thought, I wanted to share that message with people because I don't think it gets talked about enough. And, sure, I could talk to one person at a time, but I thought maybe writing a book and trying to incorporate all the science that I was reading about climate change and the environment and animal welfare and health and nutrition into, one book and one resource that people could use to help them, make better decisions, because I'm all about helping people make informed decisions. And I think that the science that I share in my book will help people make better choices, starting with the food on their plates.
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, now you pretty much explained why you wrote your book, Escape the Meatrix, I guess. And let's see. And what message do you hope readers will take away from it as well? Do you have anything else to add on it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm using the world in the Matrix movies as a metaphor for our world. So, in the Matrix movies, artificial intelligence has taken over the planet and is using humans as an energy source. And, the artificial intelligence doesn't see, individual human beings. They see humanity as a source that they can exploit for energy. And I say our world is similar to that because, we have taken over this planet. There's over 8 billion people on the planet today, and we're using farmed animals as our energy source. And we don't see farmed animals as individuals. We see them as food commodities. And because we don't see them as sentient beings, it allows us to do all the things that the artificial intelligence was doing to human beings in the movie. So I think there's this connection between the movie and our world. And I just wanted to help people see that and see that, I think most people were really, really shocked when they saw all those humans in pods that artificial intelligence was using as the energy source. And when I looked at that and saw that in the movie, the first thing I thought of was factory farming. I mean, that's what we're doing to farmed animals. And so I think there's a real good correlation there. And also that we have a choice. On the front of my cover of my book, there's a hand extending the red pill, and it symbolizes, the red pill that Morpheus offered to Neo.
Right.
And, most people in this culture don't think we have a choice. I mean, most people think we need to consume animal-based foods because, where are we going to get our protein from?
Right.
But it's not true. I mean, we do have a choice. And the idea that we don't have a choice was just something that, the Meatrix or this culture ingrained in us at a very early age. And so my book is just an invitation to kind of disrupt that and say, look, we do have a choice, and not choosing the red pill, if we continue choosing the blue pill, my book shows this is what's going to happen. We're going to just get, see further environmental degradation. Our health is going to continue to decline. We're going to see more emerging infectious diseases. We're going to see greater climate change. So all of these things are connected to the meat and dairy industries. And I share all the science in the book that I've found that supports that, shifting away from eating animal-based foods to a healthy, whole foods, plant-based lifestyle will help us avert some of the worst case scenarios of climate change and emerging infectious diseases and all of that. So I have lots of statistics in my book, and I can just share, the main one, one big one is Oxford University did a study of, they analyzed over 38,000 farms in 119 countries, and they determined that the average American could reduce their carbon footprint by 73% simply by becoming plant-based.
Wow.
And so people don't realize that. They're thinking we need to, put solar panels on our homes or start driving an electric vehicle, but they're totally ignoring the food on their plate. And, there's no single other thing that we could do to lower our carbon footprint by 73%. So that's another one of the reasons why I wanted this information to get out there, because, people want to do something that's good for the environment, and we want to make sure that our actions are having the desired impact. And the greatest impact that we could have based on this Oxford University study and others like it is by becoming plant-based.
That's amazing. And I love how you came up with that book, like Meatrix, right? The word Meatrix, because some people, our audience will know the YouTube video of the Meatrix, right? With the cute animals.
Right. Yeah.
Can you tell us a story about that? How it all...
Yeah, well, I was doing a lot of research, like I said, in nutrition and health and climate change and the environment. And as I was reading all these studies, and I was like, I was scratching my head trying to make sense of it all. I was thinking, why do we do all this when there's this mountain of evidence that's saying eating animal-based foods is bad for us, bad for the planet, and of course, bad for the animals. And I struggled to make sense of it all. And that's when I realized one day I was thinking, it's like we're born into this cult of the Meatrix. And I was like, oh, that is really cool. So I came home and I was like, I did a Google search on that term, Meatrix, and I found these animations by the Grace Foundation. And so I thought, well, someone's already beat me to it. No surprise there. It's a great portmanteau, Meatrix, combining meat and matrix. Sure. But I reached out to them and asked if they were okay with my using Meatrix in my title of my book, because they had trademarked the phrase. And they gave me their blessing. And so that was really, really great. Great. They said, yeah, I could go ahead and use it as long as I gave a disclosure in the front of my book, which I do. So I really appreciated I really appreciated their letting me, move forward with my book and with my concept of my book.
That's awesome.
Your book looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, thank you.
Really
Thank
powerful.
you.
So you're really taking the red pill by reading it, right? You don't really have to literally take the red pill. It's like while you're reading, right? That's how you digest the red pill.
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
you're digesting the red pill when you're reading the chapters and information that's in my book. And I try to cover all kinds of different areas of why a plant-based lifestyle is so powerful. So I have a chapter on why escape the Meatrix for your health, and I list the top 10 causes of death of Americans, and I show the science behind why a plant-based lifestyle offers you protection from 9 out of the top 10. The only one it doesn't offer you protection from is accidents. Unfortunately, it doesn't eliminate accidents because those happen regardless. Yeah. And then I have a chapter on why escape the Meatrix for the planet, and I go through the science behind that. And then also a chapter on why escape the Meatrix for the animals, and so much more. So it's a compilation of a lot of science. There's over 400 citations in my book.
Wow.
I'm really proud of all the research, and it comes from prestigious organizations like Oxford University and Harvard and the Mayo Clinic and so forth. And it's some of the leading science that's out there right now that supports plant-based lifestyles. For all the reasons that I've said already. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. So how can we encourage maybe more people to go plant-based, and maybe you can touch on some more benefits of it? And we all know, health-wise, but maybe, some more benefits, if you know.
Well, I think that, we've talked about a little bit about the health benefits, like you said, Shane, but I think what often doesn't get talked about are the environmental and climate change benefits.
Right.
Mainstream media talks a lot about the need to divest ourselves from burning of fossil fuels, and they talk a lot about, the need to drive electric vehicles, but mainstream media doesn't really talk about the environmental impact of the food on our plates. So I think that's a really important thing that we need to talk about. And I appreciate, being on shows like yours to have conversations like this so that we can help, get the message out there that it's not only for our health, but it's for the health of the planet and for future generations. One of the things that I share in my book is a quote by Business Insider. And they said, a hamburger isn't something bought and paid for, but a symbol of a debt that one day must be repaid.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, people aren't aware that, that there's a huge environmental cost to having that $4 burger. And I think once people can connect those dots, it'll help them make, better choices, for themselves and for the planet. And the other thing is it's never been easier or tastier to become plant-based than it is now.
True.
I mean, there's so many more products that have come to the market in the last, 4 or 5 years, and they're just getting better and better every year. And so I think one of the ways people can transition is to, we're used to centering a meal around a piece of animal protein on our plate. And so we can swap out that animal protein with some plant-based chicken or some other kind of plant-based meat alternative and continue to enjoy the same recipes that, we're accustomed to creating and enjoy the taste of that, but we can reap the health benefits by going plant-based with the protein, and it helps the planet as well. And I know the plant-based meat alternatives right now, at least in the United States, are more expensive than animal-based foods.
Yeah, here too.
But yeah, same there.
Mm-hmm.
But animal-based foods are luxury items.
Sure.
And they would be luxury items if our government didn't subsidize them as much as they do. So,
Yeah, exactly.
for instance, in 2019, I think it was, that the U.S. government gave cattle ranchers $9 billion just that 1 year alone, just in direct and indirect payments, just so they can produce a $4 hamburger.
Yeah.
And by comparison, the government doesn't subsidize, plant-based foods nearly
Lentils,
as much.
beans.
And so we have, so we have these inequities
Beans.
that are baked into the system, and
Right.
if, so what I'll advocate for in my book is that, the government needs to subsidize plant-based foods more and help farmers retool their operations away from animal-based agriculture into plant-based food economy, because that's where we have to go. Like I said, we have 8 billion people on the planet. We're supposed to have 10 billion people on the planet by the year 2050. And that's about a 22% increase in our population. But the demand for meat and dairy is expected to increase by 60% between now and then. So
Wow.
that's simply not sustainable. We don't have the land or the resources to feed a growing population meat and dairy. It's simply
Right.
impossible, and it can't be done. Yeah.
I'm
If
worried
other-
about China too,
Yeah, other
because the
countries-
population is rising so highly, and
How are we going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
plant-based lifestyles are not promoted that well. And unfortunately, the kids that get raised, they don't know any different. I mean, you're born into it to eat what you get fed, right?
Yeah.
What your parents
Born
prepare.
into the Matrix, right?
But like, I think like with
As
China, it's going to
Stuart
be
said.
very problematic. A lot. Like the population is just so high. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, this transition is going to be slow and gradual, but it hasn't been, there's been a widespread adoption of a plant-based lifestyle in the United States and in the UK, and it hasn't been gradual. It's been an explosion. So like in the United States, people who identify as plant-based eaters has gone up 300%. And between 2014 and 2019, I think the number of plant-based eaters in the UK quadrupled. So there's been a huge explosion of people identifying as plant-based and adopting this way of eating as a lifestyle. But unfortunately, it's still a minority of people. So
Right.
This change needs to happen from multiple facets. So as individuals, we need to vote with our dollars, and we need to buy plant-based foods, because when we buy a plant-based food, we're telling the market basically that we want more of it. So there is a, if we start buying, they start supplying kind of mentality there. So, but it also, that's not enough. There's not enough of us identifying as plant-based eaters to really have the kind of impact that we need to have in the time that we need to have it in. So we need to also work to make changes systemically from above. And that's why I'm advocating for the government to adjust its subsidy program. So for instance, for every dollar a lentil grower receives, a cattle rancher receives $470. And for every dollar a mushroom grower receives, a pork producer receives $160.
Wow.
And for every dollar an oat grower gets, the dairy industry gets $80. So this is crazy. We should be sustaining and subsidizing foods that are sustainable. And the meat and dairy industries are not sustainable. They're creating greater and greater climate change, and are wreaking havoc on the environment. So I think it needs to happen from above and from below, and then also the children. You were just talking about children. We're taught to do this, and it's normalized to us at a very early age. I mean, I don't know anybody who has been vegan their whole life. Most of the people that I meet who are plant-based, ate animal-based foods up to a certain point in their life. So we were taught to do this. Yeah. And that's why it's important for us to kind of disrupt that with children. And I see a lot of posts on social media right now saying, should children know where their food comes from?
Yeah.
They definitely should.
Why wouldn't we want to know where our food comes from, right? You're going to put it in your body, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, parents don't want their children to know. And I share a study in my book that so children 4 to 8 years old in the United States were surveyed, and they found some really interesting things. Like 84% of the children surveyed said it was wrong to eat a cow.
Yeah, I was like in that stage. When I was
79% said it was wrong to eat a pig.
Yep.
Yeah, and why is that? It's because children at that age see all animals as being pet-like, and they have empathy for all animals.
Right.
Well, the studies said that, we should be letting children know where their food comes from, because they don't want to eat animals. And they're becoming unsuspecting meat eaters, because they don't know they're eating it, but they are developing a habit and a taste for animal-based foods and don't even realize it. So they were saying that this would be a powerful way to disrupt that, is to educate children about where their food comes from. And, that idea of empathy for all living creatures, I think that's something we all start out life with, but unfortunately around the age of late childhood, early adolescence, our brains develop in a way that allows us to do the mental gymnastics that's required for us to stop seeing all animals as being pet-like and saying, these animals we see as pets, and these animals we view as food. And that happens around early adolescence, and that's something else that I share in my book. And so we could disrupt a lot of this by just not normalizing this and by educating children about where the food's coming from.
Exactly. It shouldn't be anymore that money talks, because think of all the meat industries, right? They breed diseases, and we go more for the money. Like, it's not deterrent at all. Oh,
there's no incentive.
Bird flu,
capitalism made it. There's no incentive to do it. So why are you doing it? You make more money doing it this way. Why would we switch it, right? And
exactly. In 20, I get some of my dates mixed up because I don't really remember all the years, but I remember the numbers. So I think it was 2019.
Right.
The meat and dairy industry generated $1.2 trillion of economic activity in the United States. That's 6% of our GDP. So that is a huge amount of money. And there are a lot of vested interests in seeing that is maintained, and not only maintained, but that it expands and grows and becomes even more of our GDP, so that they can get more money and become wealthier. These big corporations that are producing all these foods that the government is giving them handouts for. So historically, like I said, animal-based foods are a luxury item, and only the wealthiest could enjoy them with any consistency.
Right.
That's the history. But now we have flipped the script, and because of government subsidies, we've made some of the cheapest foods available are animal-based foods that everyone can enjoy. And so many of these diseases that we now have that are plaguing so many people, they used to be called diseases of affluence. But they're no longer diseases of affluence because we've made the food that creates these diseases so affordable that everybody's eating it now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Even for low-income people, right?
Yeah.
Like it's actually hard to afford plant-based foods like that are actually essential for us, like lentils, beans, and rice. But actually,
Vegetables.
And
So
vegetables.
vegetables are more expensive than, say, meat on the shelf. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're going to the supermarket. It blows our minds.
The amount of energy to create the meat versus, the plant, it's crazy.
Right.
But
Right.
subsidies and everything just make it so accessible for everyone to just be able to grab it.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
yeah, and we do it mindlessly. We
Yeah.
don't think about the impact of our food choices. In Kentucky, where I live, it's the largest cattle producing state east of the Mississippi River in the United States. So there are a lot of cattle farms around where I live. And if I drive outside the city, I'm going to see them. And I've seen them my whole life. And it looks very pastoral and bucolic. And, see the cows in the green fields. And it seems totally benign.
Right.
You think there's no harm in doing that. But it comes at a huge cost. And we don't see the cost. All those cows, they're really like a coal burning plant in terms of their climate impact. But we don't see that because methane that they're producing is invisible. It's not like a smokestack at a coal burning plant. We don't see it. So, yeah.
That's true. A silent killer.
Well, companies have learned that they can ruin our environment and there's no consequence, right? I mean, they try to fit in carbon taxes, but maybe there needs to be more.
Oh, there needs to be more.
I mean, it definitely comes at the higher level to start, with government start doing some changes before we get there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many cows,
Take time.
so what's the big deal of killing them? We just produce more and then we don't feel bad about killing them. But it's killing. We are killing. Like, we don't agree on killing humans. Why do we agree on killing certain animals? It's still killing a sentient being.
Yeah.
And that's really heartbreaking. But some people think it's tough to ignore that cows and pigs and chickens are going to get killed. They don't live long anyways. Well, do you actually know how long a cow can live? Right? The life expectancy in a farm or even factory farm is so short.
25 years.
They're like babies when they get killed too.
Yeah, dairy cows can live to be 20, 25 years. I'm sure beef cows could too as well. The average lifespan of a cow for beef is 1.5 years, I think.
That's
and
crazy.
For dairy cows,
little.
it's 4 to 5 years. They go through like 4 pregnancies and then they're no longer able to produce enough milk to be profitable by the meat industry or the dairy industry. So they're sent off to the slaughterhouse at that point. So yeah, it's really, it's an amazing the sheer number of animals that we're killing. And it boggles the mind, really, when you think about, how many animals. So, like, for instance, just land animals alone in the United States, we're killing more than 1 million land animals every hour.
Crazy.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it just goes on and on and on. It's never ending. It's a continuous cycle.
Wow.
And that's one of the problems that the meat industry faced with lockdowns due to COVID, was they had all these animals that were piling up and they didn't know what to do with them because they weren't able to slaughter them. So it was a real problem for the meat and dairy industries. And I talk about that in my book too.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's an interesting
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's great. So where can the listeners find your book? And do you have any exciting future plans? Maybe writing a second book?
Yeah.
Starting a movie?
Yeah,
deal?
Making a movie out of your book.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I would love to do a graphic novel aimed
cool.
towards young children.
Oh, wow.
And I think that would be really, really cool, but I don't know if that'll come to fruition or not. I have to run that by the Grace Foundation to see if they would allow me to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that would be really, really cool to do. And then, I'm just promoting my book right now, being on shows like yours. I really appreciate you having me on today to share this message. And as far as finding my book, they can find it on Amazon. I think Barnes & Noble also carries it. And they can find me at my website, stuartwaldner.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome,
Great.
yeah.
I mean,
I'll put it in the show notes.
Right. I usually motivate our guests, to go on like a veg fest or something, be a speaker there, be a guest speaker. That's the most powerful thing you can do, as like keep on spreading your book and your knowledge, sharing it with people, because there's a lot of newbies that are new to plant-based eating and they like to learn. I remember when I was, still new and stuff, I always wanted to learn from other people and listen to their talks.
Mm-hmm.
And we're continuing to learn too. I mean, I've learned a lot of new things that I didn't know when I wrote my book. I'm learning all the time about new things that are out there and available. So it's a never-ending process. It's a journey. There's no such thing as perfectionism as a vegan. Because we're always learning and always growing, and getting better. And if we, I'll just say I advocate for complete, whole foods, plant-based lifestyle. But any reduction people can make is going to make a difference, for their health and for the planet, and certainly for the animals. So I encourage people to do the transition if they can't do it like me, cold turkey. To do it gradually and just give up eating meat one day and try that for a while, and then add 2 days. With the idea of becoming 100% plant-based in the future. So, but we want to make this transition, like I said, because time are really facing a huge crisis on all fronts right now. So we need to make this transition as seamlessly and as quickly as possible. Right. And it's all hands. It's time for all hands on deck.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you, Stuart, and
great talking to you too. So if you're on YouTube and see us, you can't see us right now. We're kind of gone.
Seem to just disappear.
If it's audio, you won't even know that we're not there. But we just thank you all for tuning in, and thanks for your amazing, inspiring story, for getting the book out, and your knowledge is so much appreciated, and we're so grateful to have you on board on the plant-based journey.
And thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure meeting you all.
Yeah, our pleasure too.
Pleasure meeting you too, Stuart. Bye.
All right, Stuart, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, ciao.
Bye-bye.